Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I just got through having a nice Bible study with family, and a lot of what we were talking about on this particular Bible study was the same stuff I was talking about in my last video, which is why I decided I wanted to make another one. Essentially, we were talking about, one of the things that they mentioned was Abraham's uh, covenant. It was something that was said. I wish I remember exactly what scripture it was, but essentially they were saying whoever curses Abraham would have curses upon themselves, and anything that comes from Abraham, any of his descendants, any of his friends, family, whoever is in Abraham's circle, you curse them, you curse yourselves. You bless them, you bless yourselves. And it's one of those things where it's like we never know who is under what covenant with the Lord. We never know who is blessed. Sometimes we'll be in the presence of people we do not know. Maybe you're in traffic and you're frustrated and you see somebody and they may cut you off or something like that, and suddenly you wish the worst for them or want to attack them. Sometimes if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it's best to try to reel it in, because you really don't know who you're dealing with, quite honestly. And that means a million different things that you can take in your walk of life. But for me, in this particular conversation, it's about not knowing what spiritual covenants people are under, not knowing what blessings have been placed upon their lives, who they descend from, who's in their world, who can ultimately speak for them being a better person than you see in your moment, especially with strangers and people you don't know. But even with people like coworkers and stuff like that, maybe you've been at a job for a couple weeks and this person is in your life and you don't like them and you want them out of your life, and maybe you have a problem with them and you don't wish the best for them based on that interaction, those interactions, or what have you. You just don't know. You never know who it's a bad idea to wish bad upon or to get in a fight with. You know what I mean? And just in any other circumstances, it doesn't even have to be spiritual. It could be political. It could be streets. It could be a lot of different things that make this make sense. But that's one of the things that I really took from this lessons tonight, and I wanted to share with you guys. And a lot of times we have these ideas about people based on what we accept. Acceptance of others. So maybe in your walk of life, in your religion, you don't want these people around. We're seeing that in the UK right now, with a lot of nonsense taking place with people who are fighting just based on skin color, I guess, from what I understand. An African immigrant stabbed up some kids out there in a horrible incident last week. And people have gotten up in arms about their skin color in response to that situation, it seems. Don't know what's really stemming all of that. I have conspiracy theories that I can always throw into the bag, but on the surface it just seems like people are fed up with the immigrant population in UK and are separating themselves from those people in a violent way. And that takes me to a space where I say, racism and things like that, and the lines in the sand that we draw. Sometimes those lines don't vet people properly, as we were talking about last week in my video a few days ago, whatever it was. Saying that I'm only aligning with people who look like me or who vote like me or who love like me and things of that nature sometimes doesn't necessarily vet who is a blessing and who is a curse in your life. You may be drawing a line in the sand against people who would otherwise be your friend. You may be lining up with people that otherwise want to stab you in the back. There's no perfect science to this, but you should be intentional on finding out who's around you, not based on the differences they identify with or the political structures from which they stand with, but by the content of their character. As Martin Luther King said, these are the type of things that truly vet who's around us and who you can align with, that you can trust. Not just culture and things that align with your confidence as a human being, but more so a person's moral standards and compass and how they define that. A lot of times people's morality is based on these lines in the sands. I won't line up with those people because they love that way. I won't line up with those people because they look that way. And this type of things, they improperly define who's around us in a lot of cases. And they improperly define in the spiritual space who's blessed and who's not. And so these are the type of things that I think ultimately get people in trouble a lot of times, especially in the streets, where people are ultimately lining up in this environment based on proximity based on alignment and colors and things of that nature. A lot of times they don't have nothing to do with I get along with this person because we've had experiences that would otherwise make it so that I trust them, but more so about, well, we're over here. And so whoever was raised over here, we trust. And some of those people who were raised next to you, they're not to be trusted. They'd be your worst enemy. And that's why you end up seeing a lot of times proximity being an equated consistency to violence. It's like you hurt the people around you. It's a lot of times because we don't vet the people around us properly, nor do we welcome people in our lives from different spaces that would ultimately align with us better in some cases. Poverty can kind of coerce that a lot of the time, keeping people from moving around and reaching out. But I think social media is a tool that can kind of close those gaps a little bit. And so that's what I try to do on this channel, is display my best and my worst in hopes of closing that gap, so that people can't tell you who I am based on who they see someone else maybe look like me or talk like me or what have you. You see who I am on here based on everything that I've shown you. And so that's really what it's about, is try to display ourselves in the best nature. I'm not perfect, I'm far from it. But at the end of the day, what I want to display is my best and my truest, in hopes of helping you define who otherwise looks like me as an individual, rather than somebody who's grouped up together based on skin color or dialect or voice or whatever the case may be, identifiers. So that's really what it is, man. Prayers out to the families of those who lost those children in the UK. That is not a minor situation, but I don't think that it is the right call to say, because this incident took place, now we need to get rid of everybody from their side of the fence. Anyone who's an immigrant is otherwise a murderer of children. I don't think that that is a smart way to identify the problem. The problem was that man who did that thing to those people. Wanting to push out every immigrant from your country based on a single situation that may be an immigrant cause, it's lazy-minded when considering that there are many circumstances that we can do that same thing with. But I think it also gives people an excuse in this particular case to enact their hatred for people that don't look like them, for people that are of different skin colors and things of that nature. That racism, it gives them a hub to huddle around. And that's what ultimately racism does in a lot of cases. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's a teaching moment for us to pass forward something greater to our children. And that is an understanding that this doesn't work. You can't be lazy-minded when assessing circumstances. Just because a single person did a certain thing from a certain group, that does not mean that that whole group is prone to do that certain thing. And that you think that way will make it so that you're vetting people improperly and ultimately laying curses upon people that you should otherwise be blessing, and vice versa. And so that's really my point of view, man. Speak to the end of racism, hopefully, and to the possibility of a third-party entity wanting us to be at each other's throats. It's manipulatable when you gather that way in a lazy-minded mindset. You got to know that someone who's not very lazy-minded could potentially be planting that seed in place so that people like you will do what it is they want you to do, instead of focusing on them trying to manipulate all of us. So that's what I think is also possible in this situation in the UK. An entity of people want to get the ignorant of their population in a defense of their own identity, which is something that gets manipulated all the time. Oh, you did this to our white brethren. Now all of the stupid people who happen to be racist are going outside thinking they're standing up for something righteous, when in actuality they're just playing into the hands of an entity that wants them to fight people and wants them to throw their lives away and wants them to display themselves in ways that can't be loved by others. So when things go wrong in their community, people are celebrating it instead of supporting their healing, which is ultimately what evil and racism does to your community when you engage in it. It makes it so that people are rooting against you for rooting against people that don't look like you. So we got to be careful how we huddle up and agree to disagree. You know, how we huddle up and agree to disagree with other people who are different than us over here. That's an energy that is easy to root against. That's something that people need to understand. And even though you may not be going through anything right now, your group may be going through something tomorrow, and the last thing you want is people celebrating that suffering. So that's what needs to be said, man. Get the middleman out of your way. If they want you to be hateful, that means they want you to suffer tomorrow. That's all that is. If they want you to alienate people, it's because they're ultimately trying to alienate you. So think twice before you huddle up with a group that's looking to alienate others. BDL 44, I thank you all for watching.